When you look at your life and find yourself pointing fingers at everyone else, you give away your power. You blame your parents for how you were raised, your boss for not seeing your worth, your friends for not understanding you, and even strangers for standing in your way. But if it is always someone else's fault, you are not growing. Growth only begins when you accept that your choices, your responses, your habits, and your words are shaping your destiny. If you live your life blaming others, you will never break free, because every time you point the finger outward, you surrender the very power you need to change your circumstances. And this surrender becomes invisible chains that keep you bound to the same struggles, the same frustrations, and the same disappointments over and over again. And the hard truth is that nothing will ever change until you look in the mirror and admit that the reflection staring back is both the biggest obstacle and the greatest solution to every challenge you face. This is not meant to condemn you or weigh you down with guilt, but to set you free with the liberating realization that if you are the one responsible, then you are also the one with the authority to turn everything around. Because the day you accept full responsibility for your actions, your choices, your habits, and your mindset is the day you reclaim ownership of your life. It is easy, almost instinctive, to blame others, because blame is a shield we use to protect our egos from discomfort. It is always more convenient to say, "I would be further if only they had supported me," or "I could have succeeded if life had treated me more fairly," or "I was ready, but someone else got in my way." And while those statements might feel comforting in the moment, they are poison to progress. The more you repeat them, the more you convince yourself that you are powerless. And powerless people cannot grow, powerless people cannot move forward, powerless people remain stuck in the same cycles until they decide to take back their power. The only way to take it back is to stop blaming. When you stop blaming, you stop waiting for someone else to change in order for your life to improve. And instead you begin changing yourself, and that is when real growth begins. Because you cannot control the weather, you cannot control the economy, you cannot control what people say or do, but you can always control how you respond, what you choose, what you focus on, and what you believe. That is enough power to transform your entire life. Growth is not about comfort. Growth is about truth. The truth is that every time you take responsibility, you build strength, and every time you shift responsibility onto others, you weaken yourself. The act of blaming is an act of surrender. But the act of ownership is an act of empowerment, and empowerment is the soil where growth takes root. Ask yourself this: if everything in your life right now, your success, your happiness, your peace, your opportunities, depended completely on the choices you make from this day forward, how differently would you act? How seriously would you take your words? How carefully would you guard your thoughts? How much energy would you put into breaking the habits that hold you back? That mindset is the mindset of growth, and it is the mindset that separates those who stay stuck from those who move forward. Because the truth is that people who grow do not waste their energy blaming others, they use their energy to build themselves. You may have been hurt. You may have been wronged. You may have been mistreated in ways that were unfair. But even if you were not responsible for how the pain came into your life, you are responsible for how you heal from it. And if you do not take that responsibility, you remain a prisoner to someone else's actions forever. If you claim that responsibility, you walk free, and freedom is the foundation of growth. Growth means asking, What can I learn? What can I do better? How can I rise from this situation stronger than before? Instead of asking, who can I blame? Who can I point to? Who owes me an apology before I can move forward? Because waiting for apologies, waiting for circumstances, waiting for life to treat you fairly will keep you waiting forever, but choosing responsibility, choosing ownership, choosing to focus on what you can control will move you forward immediately. Think of the most successful people you know or admire. None of them became who they are by blaming others. They became who they are by deciding that no matter what happened, they would rise anyway, they would fight anyway, they would grow anyway, and that is the very spirit that you must adopt if you want to transform your life. Blaming is a dead end, responsibility is a doorway, and every doorway leads to a new level, but you cannot step through if your arms are full of excuses, because excuses are the baggage that weighs you down, and you have to drop them before you can move freely into the life you desire. This is why the chapter is called, If It's Always Someone Else's Fault, You're Not Growing. Because blame is a declaration of stagnation, responsibility is a declaration of growth, and when you declare growth, you declare war on every excuse, every limitation, and every lie that has held you back. The greatest battle is not against the people who wronged you, not against the systems that seem unfair, not against the obstacles that rise in your path. The greatest battle is against the voice inside you that says, "It's not my fault." Because as long as you cling to that voice, you will never claim the voice that says, "It is my responsibility, therefore it is within my power to change." This shift will not happen overnight. You will catch yourself slipping back into blame again and again. But each time you recognize it, you have the opportunity to choose differently, to replace blame with ownership. And every time you do, you grow a little stronger, a little wiser, a little freer. Growth is not dramatic at first, it is subtle, it is invisible, but over time it compounds, and one day, you look back and realize that the person who once blamed everyone else has been replaced by a person who takes full command of their life, and that transformation is the very essence of personal growth. And so, as we begin this journey together, let this be the foundation: no more blame, no more excuses, no more pointing fingers. From this day forward, you will hold up the mirror, and you will see not just the person responsible for your struggles, but the person capable of your breakthroughs, your victories, and your transformation. Because when you stop blaming others, you start growing. And when you start growing, you start winning. The words you speak to yourself shape every action you take, and if your inner voice is filled with criticism, doubt, and negativity, slowly erode your confidence until you begin to believe that failure is your only option. But if your inner voice is filled with strength, courage, and encouragement, you will start to see possibilities where once you only saw obstacles. This is why mastering the art of positive self-talk is not just a motivational cliché, but a fundamental key to transformation. Because what you consistently tell yourself becomes what you eventually live out. Every single day you are having a conversation with yourself, whether you realize it or not, and that conversation is either building you or breaking you. And if you constantly repeat words like, "I'm not enough," "I always mess things up," "I'll never succeed," your subconscious mind begins to accept those statements as truth, and your actions begin to align with that false belief. And without even realizing it, you create a self-fulfilling prophecy that keeps you locked in cycles of frustration. But the opposite is also true. Train your inner voice to say, I am capable. I am growing. I am stronger than this challenge. You create a different prophecy, one that pushes you to act with confidence, persistence, and hope. And eventually your life begins to mirror the strength of your words. Think about it. How many times have you talked yourself out of an opportunity before it even began? Maybe you were about to apply for a job, but then that inner voice whispered, "You're not qualified, they won't pick you." And so you didn't apply. Maybe you wanted to start a business, but your inner voice told you, "You'll probably fail just like others have." And so you didn't start. Maybe you wanted to speak up in a meeting, but the voice said, "You'll embarrass yourself." And so you stayed silent, and each time you let that voice win, you lost. Not because the opportunity wasn't there, not because you weren't capable, but because you surrendered to negative self-talk. The truth is that your words are seeds, and every time you speak to yourself, you are planting seeds in the soil of your mind. The mind does not care whether those seeds are good or bad. It simply nurtures whatever is planted, and in time, the harvest will come. It is a harvest of strength and courage, or a harvest of fear and defeat. This is why you must guard yourself. Talk as carefully as a farmer guards his field, because careless words produce weeds that choke out your growth. But intentional words produce fruit that sustains your journey. And if you truly want to transform, you must become intentional with every word you allow yourself to hear from your own mouth. Many people think positive self-talk is about lying to yourself, pretending everything is perfect when it isn't, but that is not the case. Positive self-talk is about choosing words that empower you to rise above imperfection, words that remind you that even though life is difficult, are resilient, even though challenges are real, you are resourceful, even though fear is present, you are courageous, and by speaking those truths over yourself, you unlock the strength to keep moving forward. The mind is like a muscle. Just as physical muscles grow stronger with repeated exercise, the mental muscle of confidence grows stronger with repeated affirmations. And at first it feels strange, it feels unnatural, because you may have spent years feeding your mind with doubt. But the more you practice speaking life into yourself, the more natural it becomes, until one day you wake up and realize that the old voice of defeat has grown quiet, while the new voice of strength has grown loud. And you must understand this: the world will already give you enough negativity, enough rejection, while enough discouragement. You don't need to add to it by becoming your own enemy. So stop rehearsing your weaknesses and start rehearsing your strengths. Because life is hard enough without you tearing yourself down from the inside. Your full attention, think of how differently your day goes depending on the first words you speak to yourself in the morning. If you wake up and immediately think, "I'm tired. I don't want to deal with this day. I can't handle it," you carry that heavy energy with you into every interaction, every decision, every challenge. But if you wake up and say, "I am grateful for another day. I have the strength to handle what comes. I am becoming better and better," suddenly your energy shifts, your perspective widens, and your actions align with a more empowered state of being. This is not magic, it is mindset, because your actions always follow your words, and your words always follow your thoughts. So the cycle is simple. Change your thoughts, you change your words, you change your actions, you change your results. This is why self-talk is not just talk. It is the foundation of transformation. You must also recognize that negative self-talk often comes disguised as humor or humility, like when you say, I'm just not good at this. Or, that's just the way I am. Or, I always mess up. And you laugh it off as if it's nothing. Your subconscious mind doesn't know the difference between a joke and a truth. It only knows repetition, and what you repeat, it accepts. So every time you say those things, you are programming yourself to believe them, and eventually your life reflects them, so be careful not to curse yourself with careless words. Instead, begin blessing yourself with words of life, and don't just do it once, do it daily, do it repeatedly, until your mind has no choice but to align with your declarations. And when doubt tries to creep in, when fear tries to speak louder, you respond with even stronger affirmations, because the goal is not to eliminate all negative thoughts. That may never happen. The goal is to overpower them with so much positive truth that they lose their grip on your actions. Remember, the voice inside your head is the one you hear most often. It is more constant than your parents, more consistent than your teachers, more persistent than your friends, and more influential than strangers. And because it is always speaking, it becomes the most powerful influence in your life. And the question you must ask yourself is this: is that voice your greatest enemy? Is it your greatest ally? If it has been your enemy, today is the day you change it. Today is the day you reprogram it. Because you cannot afford to let your dreams die at the hands of your own words. You cannot afford to sabotage yourself with inner conversations that make you weaker instead of stronger. From this day forward, let your self-talk be your shield, your sword, your fuel and your guide, because when you master your words, you master your mindset, and when you master your mindset, you master your life. Discipline is the bridge between where you are and where you want to go, and it is a bridge that no one else can cross for you, because discipline is not built on other people's efforts, other people's motivation, other people's approval. It is built on your daily choices, your repeated commitments, your ability to say yes to what builds you and no to what breaks you. And though it may feel restrictive at first, discipline is not a prison but a pathway, because freedom without structure leads to chaos, while freedom with discipline leads to growth, strength, and victory. Think of anyone you admire who has achieved greatness in their field, whether it be sports, business, art, leadership, or personal development. Behind their success, you will always find countless hours of disciplined practice. Moments when they chose effort over ease, sacrifice over comfort, focus over distraction, and consistency over excuses. And though their talents may have given them a starting advantage, it was discipline that sustained them, discipline that sharpened them, discipline that carried them through the seasons when motivation was nowhere to be found. Motivation can ignite you, but it is fleeting. It is like a spark that lights a flame, but without discipline to feed that flame, the fire will die out. This is why so many people start strong but quit halfway, because they rely on fleeting feelings instead of building lasting habits. But discipline does not depend on feelings. Discipline depends on decisions, decisions that are repeated until they become second nature. When you wake up in the morning and you don't feel like doing the work, it is discipline that pulls you out of bed. When you face setbacks that make you want to give up, it is discipline that keeps you moving forward. When the excitement fades and the rewards seem far away, it is discipline that reminds you why you started and pushes you to stay consistent. Discipline is not glamorous, and it rarely feels good in the moment, but it always produces good in the long run, because discipline compounds, and every small act of self-control builds upon the last until the results are undeniable. and the person you become is unshakable. You cannot build muscles without repeated training. You cannot build wealth without repeated saving and investing. You cannot build mastery without repeated practice. And you cannot build character without repeated choices of integrity. And in each of these areas, discipline is the silent force working in the background, shaping your future without demanding applause. The problem for many people is that they think discipline is about perfection, that if they miss one day or break one promise to themselves, it's all over. But discipline is not about perfection. It is about persistence, about getting back up every time you slip, about refusing to let one failure turn into permanent surrender, about proving to yourself that consistency matters more than momentary lapses. In fact, discipline becomes stronger in the face of setbacks, because each time you rise after falling, you reinforce your resilience, and resilience is one of the greatest fruits of discipline. When you choose discipline, you are choosing growth over comfort, and comfort is tempting, but it is also the enemy of progress, because comfort convinces you to stay where you are, while discipline compels you to move forward. Comfort whispers, "Take it easy, you deserve a break," while discipline whispers, "Keep going, your future deserves the effort." And the voice you listen to determines the life you live. Every time you choose discipline, are making an investment in your future self, and though that investment may not pay off immediately, it always pays off eventually. Results are the harvest of disciplined seeds sown in the soil of time. Discipline is also freedom in disguise. People think freedom means doing whatever you want whenever you want. But true freedom means having control over your choices, your habits, your direction, and only discipline gives you that control. Without discipline, your impulses control you, your distractions control you, your emotions control you, but with discipline, you become the master of your mind and body, able to act according to your values rather than your moods. Consider this: every great transformation in history, whether personal, cultural, or societal, was fueled not just by passion but by disciplined action, because passion without discipline fades, but discipline without passion still builds, and when passion and discipline unite, transformation becomes inevitable. Ask yourself, what bridge of discipline do you need to build right now in your life? The discipline of managing your time so that you stop wasting hours on distractions? Is it the discipline of exercising your body so that your health supports your dreams instead of holding you back? Is it the discipline of saving money so that your future is secure instead of fragile? The discipline of feeding your mind with wisdom instead of letting it starve on negativity? Whatever it is, you must begin today, because the longer you delay, the longer you remain stuck on the wrong side of the bridge, watching your dreams from a distance instead of walking toward them with confidence. And let me be clear, discipline is not about depriving yourself of joy, about delaying short-term gratification in exchange for long-term fulfillment. And though the sacrifices may feel difficult now, the rewards will make them worth it later, because discipline is not punishment. It is preparation, preparation for the life you truly desire, preparation for the goals you claim to want, preparation for the victory you say you are chasing. You cannot pray for strength and then refuse the discipline of training. You cannot dream of success and then avoid the discipline of effort. You cannot wish for freedom and then ignore the discipline of responsibility. Because discipline is the evidence of desire, the proof of commitment, mark of seriousness, and without it, your dreams remain fantasies, but with it, your dreams become realities. Discipline also gives you dignity, because when you keep promises to yourself, you build self-respect, and self-respect is the foundation of confidence, and confidence is the fuel for achievement. So every time you say, "I will do this," and then you actually do it, you are teaching yourself that your words have weight, that your intentions matter, that your future can trust your present, and that trust is priceless. Without discipline, you betray yourself repeatedly, saying you will do one thing but doing another, promising progress, but delivering excuses, and each betrayal chips away at your confidence until you no longer believe your own words. But with discipline, you rebuild that trust, brick by brick, action by action, until you become a person whose word is law to yourself, and that kind of inner integrity is unstoppable. Remember this: talent can open the door, but only discipline can keep it open. Opportunities can appear, but only discipline can maximize them. Motivation can excite you, but only discipline can sustain you. And life rewards not the person who starts with a burst of energy, but the person who stays consistent long after the excitement fades, and that person is you, if you are willing to cross the bridge of discipline. Fear whispers that you are not ready, doubt insists that you are not worthy, and hesitation convinces you to stay still, but these voices are liars, and the longer you listen to them, the more power you give them, until they no longer need to push you down, because you willingly stay down on your own. And this is the trap that so many fall into. The trap of waiting for confidence before taking action, as if confidence is a gift that magically appears before the journey begins, when in reality confidence is the reward that comes after you move despite fear, despite doubt, despite hesitation. And this is why the most powerful people you see are not fearless. They are not free of insecurity. They are simply those who learned to take steps while fear was still present, to move forward even as their hearts raced, to speak even as their voices trembled, and in doing so they proved to themselves that fear was never a wall, only an illusion, only smoke that disappears the moment you walk through it. Every person you admire once stood at the edge of the unknown, staring at an opportunity and feeling that same nervousness, that same trembling uncertainty. But what separates them from those who stay stuck is that they acted anyway. They leaped even when they weren't sure if they would land. They walked forward even when the path wasn't clear, and each act of courage, no matter how small, built the foundation of confidence they now stand on. This is the secret: action precedes confidence, not the other way around. And until you grasp this, you will continue waiting, hoping that one day you will wake up fearless, not realizing that fear will always be there. Because fear is not the enemy, fear is the invitation. Fear is the signal that growth is near. Fear is the indicator that you are standing at the doorway of expansion. And if you avoid it, you avoid growth. If you face it, you find freedom. Imagine a life where you stop letting fear dictate your decisions. Imagine how many opportunities you would seize if you no longer waited to feel ready, but instead decided that readiness is created, not discovered. Imagine the strength you would develop if you turned doubt into fuel, saying to yourself, "If I am doubted, I will prove them wrong, and more importantly, I will prove myself right." The truth is, fear and doubt are not proof that you cannot do something. They are proof that you are about to step into something bigger than you have ever done before. And of course your mind resists it. The mind craves safety, the mind craves routine, the mind craves familiarity, but nothing extraordinary has ever been built in the land of safety, routine, and familiarity. Everything extraordinary has been birthed in the place of uncertainty, risk, and boldness. That place can only be entered by those who choose action over paralysis. Too often people wait for the perfect moment, the perfect plan, the perfect confidence, not realizing that those things are created through movement, through trial and error. Stepping forward when everything inside screams, "Stay where you are." Confidence is a muscle, and like any muscle it grows through use. The first time you try to lift it, it feels weak, shaky, unsteady, but with each repetition, with each attempt, it strengthens, until one day the very weight that once seemed impossible is now light in your hands. It is with courage and self-belief. They are not gifts given to a select few. They are muscles built by anyone willing to endure the discomfort of action. Think of your first time learning anything. Riding a bike, speaking in public, starting a new job. You did not begin with confidence, you began with fear. But the act of trying, failing, adjusting, and trying again built your confidence. And the same principle applies to every area of life. The only path to confidence is through the valley of fear. Only way out is forward. So do not despise fear, do not resent doubt, do not wait for them to vanish, because they never fully will. Instead, decide that their presence is proof that you are stretching, proof that you are alive, proof that you are daring to leave the comfort zone where most people settle. And this decision alone will separate you from the masses, because most people let fear be their ceiling, while champions let fear be their compass. Champions know that the thing they fear most is usually the very thing they must do. Because behind that fear lies freedom, behind that fear lies growth. Behind that fear lies the life they desire. And so instead of asking, "What if I fail?" they ask, "What if I succeed? What if this risk opens a door I never imagined? What if this step changes everything?" And those questions ignite hope, and hope fuels courage. Courage breeds action, and action builds confidence, and confidence silences fear. You must decide today that you will no longer wait for confidence before you act, because waiting is another form of surrender, and surrender keeps you stuck in the same place, reliving the same cycles, dreaming the same dreams, without ever living them. But when you decide to act anyway, to push forward despite trembling hands and racing thoughts, you discover that you are far more capable than fear ever told you, far stronger than doubt ever suggested, far braver than you ever gave yourself credit for. This is not about being reckless, but about refusing to be paralyzed, refusing to let hesitation rob you of opportunities that may never come again. Because time does not pause while you wait to feel ready. Time moves forward. If you do not move with it, you will watch life pass you by. Opportunities go to others, and dreams wither into regrets. But if you move with time, if you act boldly in the face of uncertainty, you will collect victories, lessons, and experiences that build you into someone unstoppable. Confidence is not the absence of fear, it is the decision to walk with fear until fear grows tired of following, and if you keep walking, fear eventually fades into the background, replaced by the steady voice of certainty that says, "I can do this, because I already have." And so the challenge for you is simply stop waiting for the perfect moment, stop waiting for the fear to vanish. Stop waiting for permission, because the perfect moment does not exist. Fear will never fully vanish, and permission is not coming. The only thing that exists is the choice you make right now. And right now you can choose to act. You can choose to step. You can choose to begin. In that choice lies the birth of confidence, the death of doubt, and the transformation of your life. Your circle shapes your standards. And whether you realize it or not, the people you surround yourself with are either pulling you upward toward growth or dragging you downward into mediocrity. Energy is contagious. Mindset is contagious. Habits are contagious. And if you constantly immerse yourself in negativity, laziness, gossip, or excuses, you will unconsciously absorb those qualities and live beneath your potential. But if you surround yourself with people who challenge you, inspire you, push you to level up, and hold you accountable, you will begin to rise, often without even realizing it. Because the standard of the group becomes the standard of the individual. And this truth is inescapably, your circle is either your cage or your catalyst. Many people fail not because they lack talent, not because they lack ambition, but because they remain loyal to circles that poison their growth. Circles where big dreams are mocked, effort is ridiculed, ambition is seen as arrogance, and mediocrity is normalized. And the tragedy is that staying in such circles feels comfortable, because comfort loves familiarity, but comfort kills potential. Until you find the courage to step out of the wrong environments, you will never step into the life you were created to live. Consider this carefully. Every great achiever has at some point in their journey evaluated their environment and made difficult choices to distance themselves from people who were not aligned with their vision. Not because they hated those people, but because they loved their future too much to let it be suffocated. This is the kind of courage you must develop if you truly want to grow. It does not mean you become arrogant, not mean you stop caring about others. It means you stop sacrificing your potential to stay accepted in circles that do not share your values or your vision. Because the longer you stay, the more you shrink, the more you silence your voice, the more you dim your light, and the more you convince yourself that your dreams are unrealistic. When in reality it is not your dreams that are unrealistic, it is your environment that is unsupportive. Think of it like planting a seed. Even the most powerful seed cannot grow in toxic soil, but in fertile soil it will thrive, and you are the same. The seed of greatness is within you, but your soil is your environment, your soil is your circle, your soil is the people who either water your vision with encouragement and belief, or poison it with doubt and discouragement. Do not take responsibility for your soil. Your seed will never reach its full potential. Some will say, "But I can handle it. I won't let others affect me." Yet no one is immune to influence. Because even if you think you are strong, constant exposure to negativity dulls your edge, weakens your drive, and lowers your standards little by little, until one day you wake up and realize that you are living a life that is smaller than the one you dreamed of. Not because you were incapable, because you were influenced. The people you allow closest to you are mirrors, and over time you begin to reflect their beliefs, their habits, their language, and their attitude. And this is why choosing your circle is one of the most important decisions of your life. You are not just choosing friends. You are choosing your future. Look around you right now. Are the people in your life pushing you to grow, or are they keeping you comfortable in stagnation? Do they celebrate your progress, or do they secretly resent it? Do they encourage you to dream bigger, or do they laugh at your ambition? These questions are not meant to make you judgmental, but to make you intentional, because if you are serious about growth, you cannot afford to treat your environment casually. You must curate it with the same care you would give to your health, your finances, or your dreams, because everything about your future depends on it. Sometimes the hardest part of growth is not learning new skills or building new habits, but letting go of relationships that no longer serve the person you are becoming. And while it may feel painful, it is necessary, because clinging to the wrong people will cost you the right opportunities, the right mindsets, the right progress. And here is the beautiful truth: when you let go of the wrong circles, you make space for the right ones. You open doors to people who inspire you, who challenge you, who believe in you even when you doubt yourself, and who remind you of the greatness you carry inside. And these are the people who will not let you settle for less, who will not let you quit on yourself, will not let you shrink to fit in. And when you find them, your growth accelerates because you are no longer walking alone. But remember, finding the right circle starts with becoming the right person, because like attracts like. And if you want to attract disciplined, focused, and visionary people into your life, you must first commit to becoming disciplined, focused, and visionary yourself, because you cannot expect others to bring qualities into your life that you refuse to cultivate within your own. This is why protecting your energy is not selfish. It is essential, because when you protect your energy, you protect your potential, and when you protect your potential, you protect your future, and anyone who truly cares about you will respect that, and anyone who does not respect it was never truly invested in your growth to begin with. Growth requires separation, growth requires elevation, growth requires alignment, and though it may be difficult to distance yourself from circles that once felt like home, the truth is that you cannot stay in the same place and reach a new destination. You cannot cling to the same people and step into a new identity. You cannot rise to your highest self while holding on to relationships that thrive on your lowest self. Your circle matters, because your circle shapes your mindset shapes your actions, and your actions shape your destiny. And if you truly want to win, you must surround yourself with people who push you toward the best version of yourself. The company you keep today will determine the future you create tomorrow. Every setback is a lesson dressed in disguise. In the moment it feels like failure, disappointment, or even humiliation. The truth is that setbacks are not the end of your story, but the training ground for your growth. Because success is not built in a straight line, is built in a cycle of effort, mistake, adjustment, and persistence. And the sooner you accept this, the sooner you stop fearing failure and start embracing it as a teacher. When you stumble, it does not mean you are unworthy. It does not mean you are incapable. It does not mean you should give up. It means you are in the process of learning what works and what does not, and that knowledge is priceless, because every misstep carries wisdom that success cannot give. Think about it. When everything goes right, you may feel good, but you learn very little. When things go wrong, you are forced to reflect, to innovate, to stretch, to find resilience within yourself. It is in that reflection and resilience that true growth is born. The people who rise to greatness are not the ones who never fall. They are the ones who fall repeatedly, but refuse to stay down, who scrape themselves off the ground, analyze what went wrong, make adjustments, return to the fight wiser and stronger. And this cycle of falling and rising is what shapes character, endurance, and mastery. Too often people treat setbacks as final verdicts, when in reality they are temporary pauses, opportunities to gather new information, to develop humility, to refine skills, and to deepen commitment. But because so many misunderstand this, they quit too early. They misinterpret failure as permanent. They surrender to shame, and they miss the treasure hidden in the trial. You must remember that diamonds are formed under pressure, muscles are built through resistance, and champions are made in the moments when they refuse to let defeat have the final word, and your life is no different. The challenges you face are shaping you for the victories ahead, if only you will allow them to. Consider the inventors, the leaders, the athletes, the creators we admire. Every one of them has a history of setbacks far longer than their highlight reel of successes. Yet we only see the highlight reel and assume they had an easy path. But behind every triumph is a series of trials that tested their resolve. If they had stopped at the first sign of difficulty, the world would never know their names. Failure is not the opposite of success, it is part of success. It is a prerequisite, it is the tuition you pay for wisdom, and though it feels costly, it is an investment that yields priceless returns. Every time you stumble, you are being asked a question: will you let this break you? Or will you let this build you? Will you view this as evidence that you should quit your full attention, or will you view it as training for the strength you will need at the next level? Your answer to those questions determines whether the setback becomes your stumbling block or your stepping stone. Growth requires perspective. Perspective means asking better questions in the face of challenges. Questions like, what is this teaching me? How can this prepare me? What can I change next time? What new strength am I gaining from this struggle? Because when you ask those questions, you turn pain into purpose. When you find purpose in your pain, nothing can defeat you. Too many people waste their setbacks by only feeling sorry for themselves, replaying the failure over and over in their minds until it becomes their identity. But setbacks are not your identity, they are simply events. Events are meant to shape you, not define you. And when you separate your worth from your mistakes, you liberate yourself to try again without shame. Of a child learning to walk, they fall dozens, maybe hundreds of times, yet no one calls them a failure. No one says, walking is not for you. They are simply learning, and every fall is building their balance, their coordination, their strength, and eventually, after enough attempts, they walk, they run, they soar, and the same principle applies to you. Every fall is building you for flight. The difference is that adults have learned to attach shame to failure, but if you could return to the innocence of the child who falls without quitting, who stumbles without self-condemnation, you would accelerate your growth. 'Cause shame is the only thing that can turn a temporary failure into permanent defeat. You must decide that no matter how many times you stumble, you will keep rising, you will keep learning, you will keep moving. Because the only true failure is quitting. And as long as you rise, are still in the game, and as long as you are in the game, victory is still possible. Every great story has chapters of struggle, moments where the hero seems defeated, but those moments are not the end. They are the setup for the comeback, and your life is no different, so do not mistake the middle of your story for the end of your story, because the struggle you are in right now is preparing you for the strength you will need later. Even setbacks that feel devastating, losing a job, failing a relationship, missing an opportunity, carry within them the potential for new beginnings, new lessons, new directions that you might never have discovered otherwise. And sometimes the setback is not just a lesson but a redirection, steering you away from a path that was not meant for you toward one that is aligned with your true purpose. But you can only see this if you refuse to get stuck in bitterness, if you refuse to camp in regret, if you refuse to let disappointment define you, because When you hold on to bitterness, you blind yourself to the lessons. When you surrender to regret, you paralyze yourself from trying again. When you let disappointment define you, you shrink into a smaller version of yourself. But when you embrace the setback as a teacher, evolve into a stronger, wiser, braver version of yourself. Every setback is asking you to rise again, to trust again, to fight again, to believe again, and the more times you answer yes, the more unstoppable you become, because eventually you realize that no setback has the power to keep you down permanently unless you give it that power. And once you take that power back, you become resilient, and resilience is one of the most valuable qualities you can ever develop, because resilient people may bend, but they never break. They may fall, but they never stay down. They may struggle, but they never surrender. And in the long run, resilience always wins. The next time you face a setback, and you will, because life guarantees them, decide in advance that you will not waste it, that you will mine it for wisdom, that you will rise from it stronger, and that you will carry its lessons into your next attempt, because setbacks are not there to stop you. They are there to shape you. Person who embraces them is the person who eventually triumphs. Gratitude is power, and though many people treat it as a soft or secondary virtue, in reality, it is one of the most practical and transformative forces you can ever harness, because gratitude shifts the lens through which you see the world. It reprograms your mind from scarcity to abundance, from frustration to possibility, from despair to hope, and this mental shift changes not only how you feel but also how you act, how you respond, and ultimately how you live. When you wake up in the morning and focus first on what is missing, on the bills you still need to pay, on the opportunities that have not yet arrived, on the goals you have not yet achieved, you instantly start the day from a position of lack, of insufficiency, of heaviness. That heaviness seeps into every thought and every action, dragging down your energy, dulling your creativity, and limiting your courage. When you choose to start your day with gratitude, by noticing the air in your lungs, the roof over your head, the people who care for you, the opportunities ahead, even the strength you've gained from past struggles, you start the day from a place of abundance. That abundance fuels optimism, and optimism fuels action, and action fuels results. Gratitude is not denial. It is not pretending everything is perfect when it is not. It is the deliberate decision to acknowledge what is good, what is working, what is present, while you work on what still needs to improve. And that choice of focus rewires your emotional state. You cannot be deeply grateful and deeply anxious at the same time. You cannot be fully grateful and fully angry at the same time. You cannot be consumed with gratitude and consumed with fear at the same time, because gratitude and negativity cannot dominate the same space. Whichever you choose to feed becomes the master of your mind. The problem is that many people only practice gratitude occasionally, when life is going well, when blessings are obvious, when victories are fresh. The real power of gratitude is found when life is not going well, when things feel uncertain, when losses hurt, when setbacks sting, because gratitude in those moments becomes not just a reaction, but a discipline. A conscious choice to anchor your soul in abundance, even when circumstances whisper scarcity. This discipline is what builds resilience, your full attention, because when you can find something to be grateful for even in the midst of trial, you refuse to let circumstances control your spirit. You reclaim authority over your perspective, and that authority gives you strength to keep moving forward. Gratitude is fuel for endurance, because the person who can only be grateful when life is easy will quit when life gets hard, but the person who can be grateful even in difficulty will endure until the breakthrough arrives. Think of the strongest people you know, the ones who have faced loss, pain, or adversity and yet radiate peace, hope, and positivity. Almost always you will find that gratitude is at the core of their strength, because gratitude keeps them connected to what they still have instead of fixating only on what they have lost. This does not mean ignoring pain, but it does mean refusing to let pain blind them to blessings that remain, and that balance allows them to heal and grow rather than collapse. Gratitude is also a magnet for opportunity, because people are naturally drawn to those who radiate appreciation, optimism, and positivity. Doors tend to open more easily to those who live in gratitude, while doors close to those who live in bitterness and entitlement. Employers, leaders, partners, and communities all respond more willingly to a person who carries an appreciative spirit, because appreciation communicates humility, maturity, emotional intelligence, and those qualities create trust. Beyond relationships, gratitude sharpens your creativity, because when you focus on what you already have, you begin to see new ways to use it, new paths to expand it, new strategies to multiply it. Give them your full attention, and many of the greatest innovations and breakthroughs in history came from individuals who looked at what they had in their hands with gratitude and imagination instead of complaining about what they lack. A grateful mind is a resourceful mind, and a resourceful mind creates progress. Gratitude also grounds you in the present moment, pulling you away from the regrets of the past and the worries of the future. Because when you intentionally notice the beauty of this breath, this sunrise, this conversation, this opportunity, you anchor yourself in now, and now is the only place where you can take action, make change, and experience joy. Without gratitude, the present moment slips away unnoticed, lost in the fog of longing for what was or craving what has not yet come. But with gratitude, present moment becomes a gift, rich and full, and that fullness replenishes your spirit. If you want to transform your mindset with positive self-talk, you must anchor it in gratitude, because gratitude fuels the words you speak over yourself. Instead of saying, "I'm not where I want to be," gratitude allows you to say, "I'm thankful for how far I've come, and I trust myself to keep going." Instead of saying, "I don't have enough," gratitude allows you to say, "I am blessed with resources, and I will multiply them." Instead of saying, "This challenge is too big," gratitude allows you to say, "I am thankful for the strength I've gained, and this challenge will make me stronger still." Gratitude transforms complaints into affirmations, and affirmations transform possibilities into realities. But gratitude does not happen by accident. It must be cultivated intentionally, like a garden that requires daily watering, and the simplest way to cultivate it is through practice, writing down 3 things you are grateful for every morning, speaking out loud something you appreciate every evening, taking time during the day to pause and notice small blessings, choosing to express thanks to people who add value to your life. These practices may feel simple, but simplicity is often the doorway to transformation, and the more you repeat them, the more they rewire your brain to default toward appreciation instead of complaint. Science confirms this. Studies show that consistent gratitude practices literally change neural pathways, increasing happiness, reducing stress, improving health. But beyond science, life itself confirms it. When you live in gratitude, you live lighter, freer, stronger, more hopeful, and more resilient. Gratitude turns ordinary days into blessings, challenges into lessons, setbacks into setups, and endings into beginnings. And once you understand this, you stop waiting for circumstances to make you feel grateful, and you start using gratitude to shape your circumstances. This is why gratitude is not weakness but strength, not a soft virtue but a sharp weapon against negativity, fear, and despair. It is the posture of a warrior who chooses to focus on the light even in the dark, to count blessings even in the storm, to speak appreciation even in the valley, and that warrior spirit is unshakable. The world may try to distract you with everything that is missing, but gratitude will always remind you of everything that is present, and in that reminder, you will find the courage to keep going, the peace to keep believing, and the strength to keep winning. Clarity is strength, and without clarity, even the greatest effort becomes scattered, diluted, and ineffective, because energy without direction is wasted energy, motion without vision is empty movement, and ambition without a target is frustration in disguise. So if you want to live a life of purpose, fulfillment, and victory, you must first decide with precision what you truly want, who you truly are, and where you are truly going. 'Cause the world is full of people running fast in circles, chasing distractions, saying yes to everything, wondering why they feel exhausted yet unfulfilled, and the answer is simple: they lack clarity. When you are unclear, you spend your life reacting instead of creating, drifting instead of directing, living by default instead of design. But the moment you become clear, energy sharpens, your focus intensifies, and your actions begin to align with your vision. Think of a magnifying glass. Scattered rays of sunlight provide warmth but little power, yet when focused through a lens, that same light can ignite fire. And clarity is your magnifying glass. It takes your scattered thoughts, scattered dreams, scattered energy, and concentrates them into a burning force that has the power to create change. But clarity does not arrive by accident. It is forged through reflection, through asking yourself honest questions, through cutting through the noise of outside voices, and through the courage to admit what you truly desire, not what society expects of you, not what your friends or family think is acceptable, not what fear convinces you is safe, but what your soul knows is yours to pursue. Too often people live someone else's life, chasing someone else's dream, fulfilling someone else's expectations, because they never took the time to clarify their own vision, and as a result they feel restless, resentful, stuck. Yet the chains are not external, they are internal. They are the chains of confusion and lack of direction. When you sit down with yourself and define clearly, this is who I am, this is what I want, this is the life I will build, you unlock a strength that cannot be faked, because clarity creates confidence, and confidence creates action, action creates results. Clarity also creates resilience, because when you know exactly why you are doing what you are doing, you can endure storms, setbacks, and obstacles without losing hope. But when you are unclear, even the smallest challenge can make you quit. You do not know what you are fighting for. This is why so many people start projects but never finish them, set goals but abandon them, make resolutions but break them within weeks. They were never clear from the beginning. Clarity is the foundation, the blueprint, the roadmap. Without it, you are building castles on sand. And yet clarity requires discipline, because in a noisy world, distractions will always try to blur your vision. You will be tempted to compare your journey to others, to chase every shiny opportunity, to say yes to things that do not align, and if you are not intentional, your clarity will dissolve into chaos. Guarding your clarity means learning to say no. Every yes must be protected by 1,000 no's. If the path does not align with your vision, it is not for you, no matter how tempting it looks, no matter how much pressure you feel, no matter how loudly others insist. True clarity is not just about knowing what you want, also about knowing what you do not want, and being unafraid to walk away from it. It is about drawing boundaries, about focusing your energy like a laser, about refusing to scatter your power on things that do not matter. And once you commit to clarity, you must translate it into daily action, because clarity without execution is only a dream, but clarity with consistent action becomes destiny. Write your vision down, speak it over yourself daily, revisit it often, and align your choices with it relentlessly, because repetition reinforces clarity, reinforcement turns it into reality. Ask yourself, if I stayed on the path I am currently walking, where will it take me in 5 years? 10 years, that where I want to be? If not, clarity demands change, clarity demands courage, clarity demands you redirect now, before more time slips away. The beauty of clarity is that it frees you from comparison, because when you know your own lane, you no longer waste energy measuring yourself against others. Their journey becomes irrelevant to yours, their pace no longer intimidates you, their success no longer threatens you. You are clear on your own path, and clarity liberates you from envy. The truth is, clarity is peace, because uncertainty is chaos, and chaos drains the soul. But when you are clear, even if the road ahead is long and difficult, you feel lighter, calmer, more grounded. You know where you are going, and peace comes not from ease but from direction. Clarity is also magnetic, because when you speak and live with clarity, people can sense it, they trust you more, they are drawn to your conviction, and opportunities begin to align with you, because the world responds to a mind that knows what it wants. Leaders are followed not because they are perfect, but because they are clear. Creators are admired, not because they never doubt, but because they dare to define their vision clearly, and the same applies to you. The clearer you are, the more the universe conspires in your favor. But clarity requires honesty, and honesty is often uncomfortable, because clarity may reveal that you have been living in denial, that you have been clinging to excuses, that you have been chasing approval instead of purpose, and facing that truth hurts. But it is liberating, because it gives you the chance to realign before it is too late. Do not be afraid of that discomfort. Lean into it, because it is a sign that clarity is breaking through. Every great transformation begins with clarity. Clarity of who you are, clarity of what you value, clarity of what you are willing to sacrifice for, clarity of the life you refuse to settle for. And once you have that clarity, nothing and no one can stop you, because even if the road is hard, even if the climb is steep, you are anchored in vision, and vision is the fuel that keeps the fire burning. So guard your clarity, sharpen it daily, protect it from distraction. Let it guide your choices like a compass, because with clarity, every step takes you closer to destiny, but without clarity, even the fastest running will take you nowhere. Excuses feel comfortable, but they steal progress, and though they may protect your ego in the short term, they poison your potential in the long term, because every time you justify inaction with an excuse, you choose comfort over growth, you choose illusion over truth, and you choose stagnation over progress. And the painful reality is that you can either have excuses or results. You cannot have both. Excuses disguise themselves as reasonable explanations. I'm too tired. I don't have enough time. I'll start tomorrow. I don't have the right resources. But underneath, they are simply fear and doubt in costume, fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of hard work, fear of uncertainty. And while those fears may feel real, bowing to them through excuses only makes them grow stronger, while your dreams grow weaker. People rarely realize how costly excuses are. The danger of excuses is not the single opportunity you miss today, but the pattern they create over time, the pattern of procrastination, avoidance, and mediocrity, until one day you look back and realize you have built a life of regret, not because you lacked talent or potential, but because you made excuses instead of progress. Every excuse you accept is a brick in the wall between you and your destiny, and the higher that wall gets, the harder it becomes to climb, which is why you must start tearing it down now, one decision at a time, by refusing to let excuses control your actions. Think about it. Every successful person you admire has faced the same obstacles you face. Lack of time, lack of money, lack of confidence, lack of support. Yet they found a way, because they chose determination over excuses, persistence over procrastination, responsibility over blame. Truth is, excuses are easy, growth is hard. But the hard road is the only road that leads to victory. The moment you stop allowing excuses is the moment you start reclaiming your power, because excuses transfer control of your life to circumstances, while responsibility transfers control back to you. When you say, "I can't because of this reason," you are saying, "I am powerless." But when you say, "I will find a way despite this reason," you are saying, "I am powerful." And that shift in language transforms everything. Positive self-talk is the antidote to excuses. Excuses thrive on negative internal dialogue, on the voice that says, "You're not ready. You're not capable. You'll fail anyway." But when you reprogram yourself, talk to say, "I will figure it out. I will grow through this. I am capable of more than I realize," excuses lose their grip, responsibility takes its place. Ask yourself honestly, how many times have you delayed action, not because you were incapable, but because you convinced yourself with excuses that sounded reasonable at the time? How many opportunities slipped away because you told yourself you weren't ready, when readiness only comes through action? How many dreams have you placed on hold, waiting for perfect timing, when perfect timing never arrives? Excuses are seductive because they feel safe. They allow you to avoid discomfort. They allow you to avoid failure, but they also guarantee that you avoid success. The people who achieve great things are not those who never face excuses, those who recognize them for what they are, lies dressed as logic, and refuse to bow to them. You must become ruthless with your excuses, catching them in the act, exposing them for the illusions they are, and replacing them with empowering truths. "I don't have time" becomes, "I will make time for what matters." "I don't know how" becomes, "I will learn." "It's too hard" becomes, "Hard is how I grow." "I'll do it later" becomes, "I will do it now." Each time you shift an excuse into empowerment, take another step toward freedom, because excuses are chains, and breaking them is liberation. The truth is, most excuses crumble under scrutiny. Push past the first layer of justification. You almost always find fear or laziness hiding underneath, and once you expose that, you can choose differently, but it requires honesty, and honesty is often uncomfortable. Growth demands that you trade comfort for truth, because truth may sting at first, but it heals in the long run, while excuses soothe in the moment but poison the future. Ask yourself, you want short-term comfort or long-term freedom? Do you want to feel good now or fulfilled later? The choice is yours, and it is a choice you make daily, every action you take or avoid. Excuses will always present themselves. They never disappear, but you can choose to recognize them and act anyway. That choice builds discipline, resilience, and strength, while choosing excuses weakens all three. The next time you hear yourself making an excuse, pause and ask, is this really true, or is it simply convenient? What would happen if I acted anyway? What possibility am I sacrificing by choosing this excuse? And once you answer honestly, the illusion fades, and the power returns to you. Remember, no excuse has ever built a business, written a book, run a marathon, healed a relationship, or transformed a life. Only action does that. Action begins when excuses end. If you want results, you must silence excuses. If you want transformation, you must silence excuses. If you want victory, you must silence excuses, because they cannot coexist. Your dreams are waiting, your future is waiting, but they will not wait forever. If you keep feeding excuses, you will starve your destiny. Today is the day to stop giving your energy to excuses and start giving it to effort, discipline, to courage, to persistence, because those are the ingredients of growth, and growth is what leads to winning. So decide now, no more excuses. I can't. No more. Maybe later. No more waiting for the perfect moment. The perfect moment is now. The person is you. The only thing standing in the way is the excuse you've been repeating. Tear it down, replace it with action, and watch as your life begins to shift. Not because circumstances magically changed, but because you changed, because you took responsibility, because you silenced the excuses and unleashed your power. Persistence is what separates dreamers from achievers, because while anyone can imagine a better life, only the persistent have the courage to keep showing up when the excitement fades, when the obstacles appear, when the failures sting, and when the world seems to be whispering that it would be easier to quit. And this truth is timeless. Talent can give you a head start. Intelligence can give you an advantage. Luck can give you an opportunity. Persistence is the great equalizer that outlasts them all, because the one who refuses to quit eventually wins. The road to success is littered with the remains of those who had potential but lacked persistence, those who started strong but abandoned the journey when it got uncomfortable, those who had ideas but lacked endurance, and the tragedy is that they were often far closer to victory than they realized, because most people quit not when the goal is impossible, but when the goal is just around the corner. And persistence is the difference between those who give up in the middle and those who push through to the end. Every great accomplishment in history, every invention, every discovery, every empire built, every personal transformation was born not from someone who had everything handed to them, but from someone who refused to stop, someone who embraced failure as part of the process, someone who understood that setbacks are not signals to quit, but invitations to persist. When you are persistent, you develop a mindset that does not measure progress only by how far you've come, but by how faithfully you keep moving, even when progress feels invisible, because persistence knows that seeds grow underground before they sprout above the soil, and the fact that you cannot see immediate results does not mean growth is not happening. Too many people sabotage themselves because they confuse delay with denial, because they misinterpret silence as rejection, because they believe if the results are not instant, they are impossible. But persistence rejects that lie and says, I will keep going anyway. And in that decision lies the birth of champions. Persistence is not glamorous. It is not the highlight reel, not the applause. It is not the victory speech. It is the late nights, the early mornings, the countless repetitions, the sacrifices no one sees, the tears wiped in silence, the courage to try again after 100 failures, and the ability to keep faith when no evidence yet exists. Persistence demands discipline, and discipline demands vision, because if you do not know why you are fighting, you will not endure the fight. But when you are clear on your vision, persistence becomes your natural response to every obstacle, because the cost of quitting becomes greater than the pain of continuing. Persistence builds character. Every time you choose to keep going despite difficulty, you prove to yourself that you are stronger than circumstances. You teach yourself that you can rely on your own commitment, and that self-trust becomes the foundation of unshakable confidence. And persistence compounds. What begins as small acts of endurance, showing up one more day at the gym, writing one more page of the book, making one more call, saving one more dollar, accumulates into breakthroughs, into transformations, into legacies, and eventually, the world calls it success. You will always know it was simply persistence. Remember, persistence does not mean blind stubbornness, does not mean repeating the same mistake forever. It means learning, adapting, adjusting, and continuing. It means being flexible in strategy, but unshakable in commitment. It means being willing to change the plan without ever changing the goal. Some people give up because they think persistence is failing when the first approach doesn't work, but true persistence is trying again with wisdom, with lessons, with creativity, with resilience, and that combination of patience and adaptability always wins in the end. Of water carving through rock, drop by drop, year by year, persistence creates canyons, persistence shapes landscapes. Persistence achieves what force alone cannot, and your persistence has the same power to shape your destiny. If you will only stay committed long enough. Yes, persistence will test you, it will stretch you, it will frustrate you, it will demand more of you than you think you have. But in giving more, you discover that you are more, and that discovery is priceless, because it reveals strength you never knew you carried. When you persist, you stop asking, how long will this take? And you start saying, as long as it takes. And that shift changes everything. Because when there is no expiration date on your commitment, there is no obstacle that can outlast you, and eventually, the world yields to those who refuse to yield. Persistence is what turns ordinary people into extraordinary achievers, because ordinary people quit, extraordinary people persist, and persistence is a choice available to everyone, not just the gifted or the lucky, but to you, right here, right now. Do not need to be perfect, you do not need to be fearless, you do not need to be the smartest or the strongest. You only need to refuse to stop. Keep moving forward step by step, day by day, until your vision becomes reality. So let the world doubt you, let the obstacles rise against you, let the failures try to discourage you, because none of it matters as long as you persist, and if you persist, victory is inevitable, not because it will be easy, but because persistence always outlasts resistance. And that is the law of life. Failure is not the opposite of success. Failure is the ingredient that makes success possible, because every lesson you need to grow is hidden inside the moments that didn't work out. Every bit of wisdom you gain is born from the missteps you made, and every ounce of strength you carry is forged in the fire of setbacks. But most people miss this truth, because they fear failure more than they desire growth, and so they avoid trying, they avoid risking, they avoid stepping into the unknown, not realizing that the very act of avoiding failure guarantees a life of mediocrity. To transform your mindset, you must stop treating failure as a verdict and start treating it as feedback, because failure is never final unless you quit, is simply information pointing you toward a better strategy, a stronger approach, a wiser path. And when you understand this, failure loses its power to paralyze you, and instead it becomes fuel for your persistence. Think about every skill you have today. You learn to walk by falling. You learn to speak by fumbling words. You learn to write by making mistakes. And yet as adults, we forget that failure is the only way to mastery, and we begin to treat mistakes as shame instead of teachers, but nothing could be further from the truth. Success is not a straight climb. It is a staircase of failures, each one bringing you higher if you are willing to keep climbing, and the irony is that those who succeed most are often the ones who fail most. They are willing to try more, risk more, and learn more, while those who fear failure stay stuck at the bottom step, too afraid to even begin. Failure is the universe's way of asking, how badly do you want this? And only persistence answers that question, because failure will test your commitment, your vision, your discipline. But if you refuse to bow, if you refuse to see failure as the end, you eventually turn it into the very foundation of your triumph. Look at history: inventors, leaders, entrepreneurs, artists. Every one of them collected failures like trophies on the road to greatness, not because they loved the pain, but because they understood the value, because each failure eliminated a wrong approach and brought them closer to the right one. And that mindset is what separates those who grow from those who give up. Failure teaches humility, because it reminds you that you do not know everything, and humility makes you teachable, and being teachable makes you unstoppable, because the one who is willing to learn can never truly lose. Failure teaches resilience, because it forces you to rise after falling, and every rise makes you stronger, more capable of facing the next challenge, till one day you look back and realize that the failures you once dreaded were the very moments that built your unshakable character. Failure strips away illusions, because it shows you where you relied on shortcuts, where you lacked preparation, where you overestimated ease. In doing so, it demands that you face reality, and while reality may sting, it is the soil in which true growth is planted. Failure also builds empathy, your full attention, because when you've fallen, you understand the struggles of others, and when you understand, you connect, and when you connect, you influence, and influence is one of the greatest powers you can ever carry. But none of these gifts come if you run from failure, if you treat it as shame, bury it under excuses, because avoidance robs you of wisdom, while courage unlocks it. To embrace failure, you must change your language, shape your experience. Instead of saying, "I failed," say, "I learned." Instead of saying, "This is the end," say, "This is the beginning of a new approach." Instead of saying, "I'm not good enough," say, "I'm not done yet." Positive self-talk is the shield that guards you when failure strikes, because failure will whisper lies in your ear. "You'll never make it. This proves you're not capable. It's time to quit." And if you accept those lies, failure becomes final. But if you fight back with empowering truth, failure becomes fuel. Say to yourself, this is part of the process. Every master was once a beginner. I will rise stronger. And watch how quickly failure transforms from a wall into a stepping stone. Do not envy those who appear to succeed without failing, because their victories are shallow, their foundations are weak, and when storms come, they collapse. But the one who has failed and risen carries a fortress inside, unshakable, because they know they can endure. Failure will visit you again and again on your journey, but do not resent it. Welcome it as an ally, because it is the one companion guaranteed to refine you if you let it. And the more you fail forward, the closer you move toward your vision, until one day, success is not a surprise, but the natural outcome of your endurance. The truth is, failure does not destroy people, quitting does. And the reason most people never see their dreams fulfilled is not because they failed too much, but because they failed once and stopped. They allowed the sting of disappointment to become the story of their life, instead of letting it become a chapter in their growth. Refuse to be one of them. To give up, refuse to let failure define you, and instead let it refine you, because every failure is simply the raw material of your eventual success, and how you use it is your choice. Decide today that you will not fear failure, you will not hide from it, you will not let it silence you, but you will meet it with courage, with positive self-talk, with persistence, and with vision. Because when you do, failure becomes the greatest teacher you will ever have, and in time, you will realize that it was never your enemy, but your guide, leading you toward growth, toward resilience, toward victory. Discipline is the bridge between goals and achievements, the invisible structure that transforms intention into reality, because without discipline, dreams remain fantasies, motivation fades with moods, and promises to yourself dissolve into excuses, but with discipline, you create consistency, and consistency creates momentum. Momentum creates results that seem almost magical to those who never committed themselves fully. And the truth is, discipline is not about punishment or harshness. It is about love, the kind of love that refuses to let you settle for less than your best. The kind of love that keeps you accountable to your future self. The kind of love that reminds you daily that what you want most is greater than what you want now. People often say they lack motivation, but what they truly lack is discipline, because motivation is fleeting, like a spark, while discipline is the steady fire that keeps burning long after the spark has gone out. And when you master discipline, you no longer depend on temporary bursts of inspiration, because you have built habits that carry you forward whether you feel like it or not. Think of athletes who rise before dawn to train, not because they are motivated every day, but because they are disciplined. Think of writers who finish their books, not because every sentence flows with inspiration, but because they are disciplined. Think of leaders who build organizations, not because they always feel confident, but because they are disciplined. And this principle applies to you, career, in your health, in your relationships, in your dreams. Discipline is the muscle that makes all growth possible. Yet people resist discipline because it feels restrictive, but the irony is that discipline is the most liberating force you can choose, because it frees you from the slavery of impulse. It frees you from the chaos of inconsistency. It frees you from the regret of wasted potential. And it hands you control over your destiny, because when you are disciplined, you decide your future instead of leaving it to chance. Discipline is built in the small, quiet moments, in the decisions no one sees, in the choices you make daily. Do you wake up or hit snooze? Do you fuel your body with health or with poison? Do you invest your time in growth or waste it in distraction? Keep your word to yourself or break it again. And those tiny decisions compound into a life of either power or weakness. Discipline requires vision, because without a clear why, the how feels unbearable. But when your vision is vivid, when you can see your future self living the life you desire, when you can feel the reward of persistence. Discipline no longer feels like sacrifice, it feels like strategy, it feels like alignment, feels like self-respect in action. And self-talk is at the heart of discipline. Every disciplined act begins with a conversation in your mind. When temptation whispers, "Skip it today," discipline replies, "I keep my promises." When doubt whispers, "You're too tired," discipline replies, "I am stronger than this moment." When excuses whisper, "You'll start tomorrow," discipline replies, "I act today." This dialogue determines whether you stay committed or surrender. Training your inner voice to speak with strength is the secret to maintaining discipline when your feelings betray you. Discipline also requires patience. Results rarely arrive overnight, and the temptation to quit grows when progress feels invisible. But if you trust the process and stay consistent, discipline always rewards you in time, because the law of compounding guarantees that small actions repeated daily create exponential results. Consider the seed planted in the soil. It does not sprout instantly, but with consistent watering, sunlight, and care, it becomes a towering tree. Discipline is the watering of your dreams, the daily act of nurturing what is unseen until it becomes undeniable. Discipline also means mastering your environment, because willpower is limited, but environment is powerful. If you surround yourself with distractions, negativity, and temptations, discipline becomes a constant battle. But if you create an environment that supports your goals, by removing temptations, by surrounding yourself with growth-minded people, by designing systems that make good habits easier, you make discipline the natural path, not the uphill struggle. Discipline also builds identity, because every time you act with discipline, you reinforce the belief that you are a person who keeps commitments, and identity drives behavior. So the stronger your identity as a disciplined individual, the easier discipline becomes, until it is no longer a battle, but simply who you are. And discipline multiplies across areas of life, because when you master it in one domain, it strengthens you in others. The discipline to manage your health fuels the discipline to grow in your career. The discipline to control your spending fuels the discipline to invest in your future. Discipline to manage your time fuels the discipline to nurture relationships. And soon you find that discipline is not a burden, but a gift that elevates every corner of your existence. Discipline is also the key to freedom, because while undisciplined people may feel free in the moment, indulging every impulse, they soon find themselves trapped in regret, trapped in poor health, trapped in financial stress, trapped in unfulfilled dreams, while disciplined people, though they sacrifice in the short term, eventually gain the freedom of health, wealth, peace, and fulfillment. This is why discipline is non-negotiable if you want to win. Winning is not a one-time event, it is the cumulative result of daily actions sustained over years. Only discipline sustains those actions long enough for greatness to unfold. So do not run from discipline, embrace it, because it is not your enemy but your ally, not your prison but your passport, not your punishment but your power. And the sooner you build it, the sooner you will experience the life you were created to live. Remember, discipline is a choice, and every day, you either choose to feed it or starve it. You either choose growth or comfort, progress or excuses, consistency or chaos, and those choices define not just what you achieve, but who you become. Today is the perfect day to decide that you will stop waiting for motivation and start practicing discipline, that you will stop breaking promises to yourself and start honoring them, that you will stop being ruled by feelings and start being ruled by vision. Because when you do, you will discover that discipline is not something you force yourself into. It is something you grow to love, because it is the path to becoming the best version of yourself. Your environment shapes your mindset more than you realize. Your attention, because while you may believe that your willpower alone determines your growth, the truth is that the people you surround yourself with, the places you spend your time, and the voices you allow into your head are constantly influencing your thoughts, your beliefs, and your behaviors. If you are not intentional about your environment, it will either pull you forward or drag you backward without you even noticing. Cannot plant yourself in toxic soil and expect to grow strong, just as you cannot place a seed in darkness and expect it to flourish, because growth demands light, nourishment, and the right atmosphere, and your life is no different. Look at your circle of influence. Do the people around you challenge you to be better? Or do they comfort you in staying the same? Do they inspire your ambition? Or do they feed your excuses? Do they clap when you rise? Or do they quietly hope you fail so they feel less threatened? The hard truth is that not everyone who walks with you is meant to grow with you. Give them your full attention, and sometimes the biggest step of personal growth is choosing to distance yourself from relationships that keep you small. But environment is more than people. It is also the physical and mental spaces you occupy daily, because if your home, your workspace, your digital world, even your daily routines are cluttered with negativity, distraction, and chaos, they drain your focus, your energy, and your will to pursue your goals. Discipline becomes 10 times harder in an environment designed for failure, while it becomes natural in an environment designed for success. Think about it. If your kitchen is filled with junk food, discipline in healthy eating becomes a battle of willpower every single day. But if your kitchen is stocked with nourishing choices, discipline becomes almost automatic. If your phone is filled with endless distractions and negativity, your attention will scatter. But if your digital environment is curated for learning and positivity, your mind will grow. That is why designing your environment intentionally is not optional. It is essential. Surround yourself with reminders of your vision. Fill your space with triggers that push you toward growth, and remove the triggers that tempt you into self-sabotage, because your environment is either your silent coach or your silent killer. But just as important as your physical environment is your mental environment. The books you read, the podcasts you listen to, the conversations you entertain, the content you consume. Because these inputs become your internal dialogue. Your internal dialogue becomes your external reality. If you constantly feed your mind with negativity, gossip, and despair, do not be surprised when your thoughts echo with doubt, fear, and excuses. But if you feed your mind with positivity, knowledge, and inspiration, your thoughts naturally align with strength, courage, and growth. The saying is true: you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. But it is equally true that you are the average of the 5 voices you allow most often into your mind, and in today's world of constant media, get to choose whether those voices lift you or limit you. Creating the right environment also means seeking communities that align with your values, because growth thrives in accountability and shared energy. When you walk with others who are striving, their momentum fuels yours, their discipline sharpens yours, and their victories remind you of what is possible, while isolation or toxic circles drain that energy until you begin to doubt yourself. Be brave enough to audit your environment. Look at your friends, your habits, your routines, your spaces, your inputs, and ask, does this push me toward my vision or pull me away? Does this align with the person I want to become or chain me to the person I used to be? And be ruthless with the answer, because no dream is worth sacrificing to the comfort of an environment that holds you back. But understand this, creating a supportive environment is not about perfection, it is about intentionality, because no environment will ever be flawless. But if it tilts the scale even slightly in your favor, that tilt compounded over weeks, months, and years becomes the difference between success and regret. This is where positive self-talk ties in, because even in a supportive environment, the most important environment of all is the one you carry inside your mind, the one where your self-talk either uplifts or destroys you. The one where your inner voice either cheers you on or criticizes you into paralysis. And the truth is, you cannot always control the external world, but you can always cultivate the internal one. When your external environment is negative, your positive self-talk becomes your shield, protecting you until you can create change. When your external environment is supportive, your positive self-talk amplifies it, turning good energy into unstoppable momentum. That means your greatest task is twofold: intentionally shaping the world around you, while fiercely protecting and empowering the world within you, because together they create the ecosystem in which your growth thrives. And never underestimate the compounding effect of small environmental shifts. Moving your desk to face natural light, starting your morning with affirmations instead of scrolling, spending time with mentors instead of complainers, reading empowering literature instead of mindless distraction. These small shifts seem insignificant in the moment, but over time, they rewire your patterns. They elevate your mindset, they accelerate your progress, until one day you realize you are living in an environment designed for excellence, and excellence becomes inevitable. So, stop underestimating the power of your environment, and start designing it with intention. You cannot grow beyond the soil you are planted in, and if the soil around you is toxic, you must either enrich it or uproot yourself into a place that allows you to thrive. Choose your people, choose your spaces, choose your inputs, and above all, choose the voice within you. Because when your environment supports your vision, discipline feels lighter, persistence feels easier, and success feels closer, not because the journey became less demanding, but because you finally stopped dragging the weight of an environment that was working against you. Gratitude is not just a polite response to good fortune, is a mindset, a daily practice, and a transformative power that reshapes how you see the world and how you see yourself. Because when you choose gratitude, you are training your mind to focus on abundance rather than lack, on progress rather than problems, on possibilities rather than limitations. And this shift in perspective fuels resilience, strengthens discipline, and keeps you motivated even when life feels difficult. Too many people believe they will be grateful once they succeed, once they achieve their goals, once everything is perfect. But this is backwards thinking, because gratitude is not the result of success. It is the foundation of it. Gratitude sharpens your awareness of the opportunities already around you. It strengthens your appreciation of the resources you already have. And it cultivates a positive self-talk that reminds you that you are not starting from nothing. You are starting from a place already filled with blessings. When you wake up and say, I am grateful for this day, for my health, for my chance to grow, you enter life with a mindset that sees possibilities instead of obstacles. This mindset is what allows you to keep pushing when others quit. Gratitude is the antidote to negativity, because it is impossible to complain and be grateful at the same time. It is impossible to dwell on excuses when you are focused on what you already have. It is impossible to sink into despair when you are listing reasons to rise. Gratitude reframes failure, because instead of saying, "I lost," gratitude says, "I learned." Instead of saying, "This setback ruined me," gratitude says, "This setback refined me." And that reframe keeps you moving forward instead of stuck in bitterness. Gratitude also deepens your relationships. When you practice it daily, you stop taking people for granted. You begin to acknowledge their value, create an atmosphere where encouragement flows freely, and encouragement is fuel for growth. Gratitude makes discipline easier, because instead of seeing discipline as deprivation, you see it as a privilege, as the opportunity to care for your body, your mind, your future. When you are grateful for the chance to grow, discipline feels less like a burden and more like a blessing. Gratitude even amplifies persistence, your full attention, because when you are grateful for small wins along the way, you find the energy to keep going for the bigger ones, and those small wins build confidence that carries you through the harder seasons. The power of gratitude lies in its simplicity, because it does not require wealth, status, or perfect circumstances. It only requires awareness to pause and recognize the good that is already present, even in the middle of difficulty. If you practice gratitude when life is hard, you will discover strength you didn't know you had, because gratitude reminds you that even in the storm, there is shelter. Even in the darkness, there is light. Even in the struggle, there is growth. Some people dismiss gratitude as soft or sentimental, but the truth is, gratitude is a discipline as powerful as any workout, as vital as any business strategy, because it trains your mind daily to resist negativity and focus on possibility, and the mind trained in gratitude is the mind that wins. Start small. Write 3 things you are grateful for each morning. Speak 1 word of gratitude aloud every evening, or pause during your hardest moments and whisper, "Thank you for the strength to face this." And watch how those practices rewire your outlook. Gratitude is contagious too, because when you live it, others feel it, and you begin to elevate the energy of every room you enter, making you not just someone who grows personally but someone who inspires growth in others. And do not forget, gratitude toward yourself is as important as gratitude toward others, because too often you criticize yourself for every mistake, but forget to thank yourself for every effort, every step forward, every act of persistence. And when you begin to say, "I am grateful for my discipline, I am grateful for my growth, I am grateful for the person I am becoming," your self-talk becomes a force that strengthens you rather than sabotages you. Gratitude also protects you from comparison, because when you are focused on your blessings, you are not distracted by what others have, and comparison is one of the fastest ways to lose joy, but gratitude restores it, reminding you that your journey is unique, and that you already carry more than enough to keep moving forward. Gratitude is not about ignoring pain or pretending everything is perfect. It is about acknowledging the good even when things are imperfect. Because the truth is, life will never be free from struggle, but there will always be reasons to give thanks. Finding those reasons is what gives you hope and endurance. If you can cultivate gratitude daily, your entire mindset transforms. You stop waiting for happiness and start creating it. You stop waiting for success to validate you and start realizing that gratitude itself is success, because a grateful heart is a fulfilled heart. That fulfillment comes clarity, energy, creativity, and resilience, the very qualities that fuel winning. So do not underestimate gratitude. Practice it intentionally. Let it guide your perspective. Let it shape your self-talk. Let it be the anchor that steadies you in storms, and the lens that magnifies your blessings in sunshine. And you will find that the more grateful you become, the more life gives you reasons to be grateful, until abundance becomes your reality, not by chance but by choice. Winning is not a single moment, a medal, or a trophy, but a process of becoming the version of yourself who refuses to quit, who chooses growth over comfort, who speaks life into their own mind until persistence becomes second nature, and who understands that success is not about proving others wrong, but about proving yourself right, about keeping the promises you make to yourself until your habits, your mindset, and your environment align with the vision you hold in your heart. You see, the finish line is not the end of the journey. It is a reflection of every step you took when no one was watching. Every choice you made to keep going when it would have been easier to stop. Every word of positive self-talk you repeated when doubt tried to drown you. Winning begins the moment you decide that excuses are no longer your story, that blame is no longer your language, that waiting for luck or outside validation is no longer your strategy, and instead you take full ownership of your growth, your mindset, your words, your actions. The truth is, life will test you. It will put obstacles in your path, setbacks in your progress, and storms in your journey. But winning is not the absence of those challenges. It is the choice to rise in spite of them, to turn pain into purpose, failure into feedback, and pressure into power, because every struggle you endure is a training ground preparing you for greater strength. Too many people quit just before their breakthrough, because they confuse difficulty with defeat. But winners know that difficulty is the bridge between where they are and where they want to be, and they cross it not with complaint, but with determination. Winning also requires patience, because real transformation is not instant. It is the result of countless small decisions compounded over time, and the person who stays consistent, who stays grateful, who stays disciplined, and who keeps their inner dialogue aligned with belief, the one who eventually reaps the reward. And here is the key: winning is not about beating others. It is about mastering yourself, your full attention, because your greatest opponent is not the competitor in front of you, but the voice inside you that says, "Stop, it's too hard. You're not good enough." And when you learn to silence that voice with positive self-talk, when you replace "I can't" with "I will," when you replace "I'm failing" with "I'm learning," when you replace "I'm weak" with "I'm growing stronger," you discover that winning is available to you in every moment you choose courage over fear. Winning is also about integrity, because if you cheat yourself on the small things, skipping the discipline, ignoring the gratitude, avoiding the growth, you cannot expect to win in the big things. But if you train yourself to honor your word, even in the smallest commitments, you build the identity of a winner, and identity always determines destiny. And let me tell you, winning is not linear. It will not always look like progress. Sometimes it will look like failure, like detours, like delays. But those are not signs that you are losing. They are invitations to build resilience, to strengthen character, to deepen gratitude. Those qualities are what make your eventual success not only possible but sustainable. Winning is also about contribution, because what good is it to achieve everything if you inspire no one, if you lift no one, if your journey begins and ends with you alone? Winners multiply their impact by sharing their lessons, their energy, their belief. Because the highest form of winning is not just achieving your own goals, but showing others that they can achieve theirs too. And here is where the journey comes full circle all along. It was never about the applause, the recognition, or the approval of others, always about becoming the kind of person who wakes up every day with clarity, discipline, gratitude, and positive self-talk. Who knows that no matter what happens externally, they have already won internally by choosing growth, by refusing excuses, by speaking belief into their own life until their actions match their vision. That is what it means to focus on you until you win. Not selfishness, but responsibility, the responsibility to take ownership of your mindset, your habits, your environment, your gratitude, and your persistence. When you win internally, the external victories naturally follow. And so, as you close this journey and step into your own life with these principles, remember this: winning is not one grand moment, but thousands of small ones. The choice to rise when you fall. The choice to believe when it's easier to doubt. The choice to stay grateful when it's tempting to complain. The choice to discipline yourself when distractions call your name. The choice to persist when quitting looks easier. And above all, the choice to speak life into yourself daily, because your words shape your world. The secret is simple, but not easy. Keep showing up. Keep speaking belief. Designing your environment. Keep practicing gratitude. Keep building resilience. And keep focusing on you until you win. Because the day will come when the victory you once dreamed of will no longer feel like luck. It will feel inevitable. Because you became the kind of person who was always destined to achieve it.